Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Darrow, and today I will be talking a little bit about Project L.O.D.M, using AI to map and measure litter across Norfolk. Before we get started, I'll go through the structure that this presentation will go through. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the context or situation of the project, some problems that I went through, the solutions to said problems, results, next steps for implementation, and some skills that I learned along the way. So to set up a little bit of context, litter represents a major economic and ecological challenge. The US spends over $11.5 billion annually. Most of that is allocated to private businesses, about $9.1 billion, and then the rest of it goes to state and local governments to cover for. According to a survey, 85% of beach tourists avoid heavily littered beaches, potentially reducing tourism spending by 38.1%. The cost to pick up a single piece of litter is anywhere from 17 to 79 cents. And litter can clog drainage systems, leading to flooding, erosion, and damage to roads and sidewalks, which we are very familiar with here in the city of Norfolk. Um, some problems ahead of us is understanding the distribution of litter. This problem is actually uh, pretty well answered. Where is the litter in the city of Norfolk and how much there is? How can we measure litter and can that process be automated? Right now, we have volunteers that go out annually and um, do a citywide survey on a scale of 1 to 4, one being least littered and 4 being the most littered areas of the city. And then finally, implementation. How can we implement this automation that is scalable and accessible to everyone? So I'll switch over here from my slides and go over to my Google Colab that I'm using to run this analysis. So to start, we use two primary data sets that have allowed us to track litter over time. The first one is the Literati litter per meter data set. This is on the Norfolk Open Data Portal, and it tells us a little bit about litter per meter measures across Norfolk. Um, this data tells us where the litter is and how much there is of it. And then the Norfolk Litter Index, which was compiled by volunteers going out into the community and kind of tracking on a scale of 1 to 4 how much litter is in different areas of the city. So to start, we pull in the data sets via the City of Norfolk's Open Data Portal API. We get descriptive statistics telling us means, percentiles, things like that. This first data set was a little bit easier to work with. All we had to do was fill missing values with averages of columns so that we could create these geographic distribution maps. So the way we can read this is that the larger the bubble you see, um, the more litter there is per meter, and then the redder the color is, the higher number of litter objects were found in that location. So you can see that, the larger the bubble and the more red the bubble is, the more litter there is. So we can see that in a lot of these visuals that our litter in Norfolk is centered in southeastern Norfolk, up Tidewater and across Little Creek. This specific visualization shows litter in the spring of 2022. The next one is in the summer. This one is kind of an irregularity, but we see those same trends plot into the fall, with high levels of litter in South Norfolk, up Tidewater /64, and across Little Creek. Now, the next data set that I decided to go through was the litter index. This data set was a little bit harder to work with because I had to add lat and longitude measures. So what I did was I utilized AI to analyze a PDF of these different routes and tell me the approximate center of those routes. So essentially, there's about 60 routes that Keep Norfolk Beautiful went along. And what I did was mapped each of the latitude and longitudes and applied that to the current data set so that I could actually map these things. This is a little bit of a pullout, but once we had it in a place that we could work with, we created a really cool dynamic visualization that looks at these levels on a scale of 4 um, across Norfolk in different areas. So we can see the same sort of distribution that we did in the literati data set with a high number of litter counts in southern Norfolk along Tidewater and up Little Creek. I call this the Tidewater Little Creek T. You can see that it kind of makes a T sign. And you can go across the years and see how this trend evolves over time. There are some years where there's spikes in other areas, like in 2017, but that Tidewater Little Creek T of litter kind of remains a constant. So now that we understand where and how much the litter is, we want to create a process that allows machine learning to automate the process of, sending out volunteers and collecting this data, because that's how this data set was created, was we had teams of 5 to 6 volunteers go out to each of these locations and measure on a scale of 1 to 4 how much litter is in that location. So to automate this, we first collect our data. This data comes from multiple data sets collected on RoboFlow and put together. These images are taken of different litter in different environmental situations. And so what that means is we have images of litter taken from aerial images on beaches, roadways, pretty much anywhere you can think where litter would be found. We have data for that. Then once we collect that data, we run it through Ultralytics's YOLO V11 model. We make sure that our system is up to snuff to run these models. We then train the models. You can track how the model trains over epochs. From there, once we have the model, we can validate that model and get how well the model actually performs. I'm saying model a lot. So we can get the precision of it, which in this case is 84% with a recall of 64. We can then run inference on individual images in our directory. I was not happy with this, so I opted to create a user interface leveraging Gradio. Gradio is a more native library that allows you to create machine learning user interfaces, which was perfect here. So what I did was I created a user interface that you can use to upload images and run real-time inference on those images. So for example, let's take an image like this one and we submit it once the file is uploaded. And this will throw at us an inference image that tells us how many bounding boxes or how many pieces of litter were found in that image and the level of that litter. Once we have that, we get results. So we know where the litter is and how much of it there is. We've created a model that can accurately detect that litter. And from there, we can begin implementing. So right now, we want to go out and take those pictures at those problem areas and prototype a batch processing framework where we can take a ton of images taken of litter across Norfolk and return a table of results with inference and a geocoded latitude and longitude measure of where that image was taken. Once we have that prototype batch processing, we can then transfer that process over to a local platform for security reasons. You don't really want to host something like this on Google Colab forever. So once we have that, once we transfer it over to a local platform, we can then present these results to key stakeholders and we can discuss next steps for implementation, whether it means putting cameras on bikes or cars and going across the city and taking those images and batch processing it so we can know we can have a better way of telling where that litter is and how much of it there is so that we can better direct cleanup processes. A few skills that I learned along the way include data analysis. It took a little bit of finagling to go in and get that raw data, get it cleaned up, and put it in a place where I can actually work with it and visualize it. I had to research and do some background studying to look into the actual economic impact of litter in these areas. And then finally, this project heavily hinged on the use of machine learning. The chance I got to work with a lot of these computer vision models was an amazing opportunity to create something that can automate a what can seem to be a very daunting task. Um, so I thank you guys for listening. Um, if you have any questions, please reach out to my email at ndarr002@odu.edu. You can also learn more at my GitHub, which will be linked in the description down below. I hope to see this project to fruition and full implementation to a point where you know exactly where litter is in the city and where and how much to pick up, so that Norfolk can have a cleaner and brighter future. Thank you, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.